Case 0.
Margaret Ashworth walked into a Walmart supercenter in Springfield, Missouri, on a Saturday afternoon in October of 2018. She appeared on 53 separate interior camera angles over the next 73 minutes. She is visible making a list of small decisions. She compares 2 brands of laundry detergent. She puts a bag of apples in her cart. She reaches for a frozen pizza, pauses, reaches for a second one. The camera in the frozen foods aisle captures the last clear image of Margaret Ashworth that exists anywhere on Earth. The timestamp on that frame is 4:01 in the afternoon. She did not leave the store, not through any of the 18 exterior camera-covered exits, not through the employee door, not through the fire doors, which were monitored and alarmed. Her silver Honda CR-V remained in the south side of the lot for 9 days. Her purse was on the passenger seat. Her phone was in the cup holder. The pizza she had chosen was later found in a shopping cart at the far end of the electronics section at 9:45 that evening, still frozen. She has not been seen since. This is Case 0. Between 2006 and 2024, 11 American adults walked into large retail stores in the United States and did not walk out. The stores were Walmart supercenters, Costco wholesales, Target, Home Depot, Sam's Club, and Kroger. The subjects entered on surveillance footage. The cameras that faced them at every exit recorded nothing of their departure. Their vehicles remained in the parking lots for days or weeks. Their personal effects remained in the vehicles or in the stores. In every one of the 11 cases, retail loss prevention personnel and the investigating law enforcement agencies were unable to account for the subject's physical departure from the premises. There is a phrase used among retail loss prevention managers to describe this category of incident, passed between district managers at corporate training sessions, never documented in any public report. The phrase is a ghost exit. This investigation walks you through 11 of them. I have built this investigation on 4 sources. First, Freedom of Information Act releases from the state attorney's general offices in Missouri, Washington, Maryland, Texas, Florida, New Mexico, Georgia, Minnesota, Massachusetts, Arizona, and North Carolina. Second, civil discovery filings from insurance subrogation lawsuits and wrongful death suits filed by the families of the missing against the relevant retailers. Third, surveillance footage subpoenas executed against loss prevention archives at corporate level of the 7 retail chains involved. Fourth, direct interviews with the family members of 10 of the 11 missing, with an anonymous retail loss prevention district manager who has worked 3 of the chains over a 19-year career, and with 2 private investigators who have been engaged by families to review the footage independently of law enforcement. The cases are documented. The evidence is physical. The retailers, per the written statements I have obtained under subpoena from their own internal review reports, do not have an explanation that accounts for the physical facts. The phrase does not appear in the internal reports. The phrase is what the men and women who watched the footage called it to each other in the loss prevention rooms after the cameras were turned off. Margaret Ashworth was 46 years old. She worked as a registered nurse in the pediatric oncology ward of a hospital in Springfield, a city of approximately 170,000 people in the southwest corner of Missouri. She was married to a man named Douglas Ashworth, a high school football coach at the public school her son attended. Her son Brendan was 17 at the time of her disappearance, a senior in high school with plans to attend college in Arkansas the following autumn. The Ashworths lived in a small single-story ranch house in a subdivision on the north side of Springfield. Their marriage was, by every account I have been given, stable and ordinary. Margaret worked a rotating 12-hour shift schedule. Saturday, October 20th, 2018, was her first day off after 4 consecutive 12-hour shifts. She had slept until approximately 9:30 in the morning. She had eaten breakfast with Douglas on the back patio. She had mentioned, per Douglas's written statement to the Greene County Sheriff's Office, that she intended to go to the Walmart on Campbell Avenue that afternoon to pick up groceries for the coming week and to buy a present for her sister's birthday, which was the following Tuesday. She left the house at 2:30 in the afternoon in her silver Honda CR-V. She told Douglas she would be home by 5. The Walmart on Campbell Avenue is a supercenter, the largest retail format Walmart operates. The building encloses approximately 180,000 square feet of floor space. The parking lot holds approximately 800 vehicles. The store operates 24 hours a day. On an average Saturday afternoon, the store serves between 4,000 and 5,000 customers. Margaret's vehicle entered the south lot of the Walmart at 2:43 in the afternoon, per the lot entry camera time stamp. She parked in the 9th row of the south lot, approximately 200 feet from the store's main south entrance. She exited the vehicle at 2:46. She carried no bag, no purse. She had left her purse on the passenger seat and her phone in the cup holder. This was her routine, per Douglas, because she disliked carrying a purse through crowded stores. She kept her driver's license and 2 $20 bills in the back pocket of her jeans. She kept a credit card in the front pocket. She entered the store at 2:47. The south entrance camera captured her entering, a middle-height woman wearing a burgundy sweatshirt, black jeans, white sneakers, her shoulder-length brown hair pulled back in a simple elastic band. She picked up a shopping cart from the cart corral just inside the entrance. She walked past the customer service counter without stopping. She proceeded into the store's main aisle. For the next 73 minutes, Margaret Ashworth appeared on the Walmart interior surveillance system in 53 separate time-stamped camera frames. I have reviewed the footage in the possession of her family, obtained through a civil discovery order granted in their subsequent civil action against Walmart in 2020. The footage shows Margaret moving through the store in a manner that is, by every measure an investigator can apply, completely ordinary. She stops at the pharmacy counter, but does not speak with the pharmacist. She moves through the household goods aisle. She spends approximately 4 minutes in the produce section, selecting apples and a head of lettuce. She pauses in the greeting card aisle for approximately 3 minutes, picks out a card, places it in her cart. She proceeds to the frozen food section. The last camera frame that captures Margaret Ashworth is time-stamped 4:01 in the afternoon. She is in the frozen pizza freezer aisle. She is holding a DiGiorno frozen pizza in her right hand. Her left hand is on the freezer door. Her expression is, per the forensic image analyst the Ashworth family hired to review the footage, unremarkable. She is not looking up. She is not looking at anything outside the frame. She is looking at the pizza. The next frame in which Margaret Ashworth should appear is on any of 18 exterior cameras covering the 18 points at which a customer can exit the Walmart Supercenter on Campbell Avenue. Those 18 points include the 2 main customer entrances north and south, the garden center exit, the auto center exit, 8 fire doors, 4 employee entrances, and 3 loading dock access points. Every one of those 18 cameras recorded continuously through October 20th and into the morning of October 21st. The Ashworth family's forensic analyst reviewed the footage from all 18 cameras covering the 4-hour window from 4:01 to 8:01 that afternoon. Margaret Ashworth does not appear on any of them. At 9:45 that evening, a store associate named Tyler Ridgway was returning abandoned merchandise to shelves as part of his closing shift duties. He found an abandoned shopping cart in the back of the electronics department. The cart contained 1 DiGiorno frozen pizza, still cold to the touch, a bag of gala apples, a head of iceberg lettuce, and a greeting card with a picture of a white cat on the front. Tyler reported the abandoned cart to the shift manager, who noted the items in the store's abandoned merchandise log and directed Tyler to return the items to their appropriate shelves. At 11:15 that evening, Douglas Ashworth called the Greene County Sheriff. Margaret had not returned home. She had not called. Her phone was going directly to voicemail. The sheriff dispatched a deputy to the Walmart, who located Margaret's Honda CR-V in the south lot at 11:48. The purse was on the passenger seat. The phone was in the cup holder. The phone had no missed calls or messages. The driver door was locked. The Greene County Sheriff's Office initiated a missing persons investigation at midnight. By dawn, the investigators had reviewed the Walmart exterior camera footage and identified the time stamp of Margaret's entry. By mid-morning, they had reviewed the interior camera footage and identified the 4:01 frame as her last visible appearance. By the afternoon of October 21st, they had concluded, per the sheriff's initial report, that Margaret Ashworth had not physically left the Walmart Supercenter on Campbell Avenue through any monitored exit. The sheriff's investigation remained open for 4 years. It included 3 full store searches with a cadaver dog, a dive team investigation of the retention pond on the north side of the parking lot, excavation of 2 HVAC crawl spaces, and subpoenaed reviews of every employee's cell phone records, personal vehicle logs, and time clock entries for the shift of October 20th. The investigation concluded in 2022 without a finding. Margaret's case was filed in the Missouri Missing Persons Clearinghouse as an unresolved disappearance. Her family's civil action against Walmart was settled out of court in 2023. The terms of the settlement are sealed. Douglas Ashworth died of a heart attack in the summer of 2024. He was 51. Brendan Ashworth, now 23, works as a physical therapist in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He drives home to Springfield every October 20th, on the anniversary of his mother's disappearance. He spends the afternoon sitting in the south lot of the Walmart on Campbell Avenue, in a parking spot in the 9th row, approximately 200 feet from the south entrance. He does not go into the store. I interviewed him at his apartment in Fayetteville in the spring of 2024. He told me he sits in the lot because it is the last place on earth where his mother was definitely alive. He told me he has walked into the Walmart exactly once in the winter of 2019 and had to leave within approximately 90 seconds because the sound of his own footsteps on the tile seemed wrong to him in a way he couldn't put into words. He told me he does not intend to walk into that Walmart again. I do not know what happened to Margaret Ashworth. The sheriff's office does not know. The Walmart Loss Prevention Team does not know. What the physical evidence establishes is that at 4:01 in the afternoon on October 20th, 2018, a 46-year-old nurse was holding a frozen pizza in the frozen foods aisle of a Walmart supercenter in Springfield, Missouri, and that at no time afterward did she pass through any of the 18 monitored exits of that building. The pizza she had been holding was returned to a freezer by a store associate 5 hours after she had set it down. The freezer is still there. I have stood in front of it. The freezer, as of my last visit in spring of 2024, contains frozen pizzas. The second case involves a man who should not have been in the store at the time he entered. Donovan Ayers was 61 years old. He had retired in 2019 from a 40-year career as an electrical engineer with a regional utility in western Washington. He lived with his wife, Marjorie, in a small craftsman house in the Seattle suburb of Burien. He had taken up 3 hobbies in his retirement. He built elaborate scale models of 1920s rail transit systems. He volunteered at a neighborhood food bank twice a week. He shopped at Costco. He was, per Marjorie, the sort of retired engineer who found the operational rhythms of a Costco membership warehouse soothing, who read the fine print on every product he purchased, and who kept a handwritten spreadsheet of his Costco purchases over time to track the cost per unit of staple goods against inflation. On the morning of Thursday, February 4th, 2021, Donovan drove the 7 miles from his house to the Costco wholesale location in Tukwila, Washington. He arrived at the warehouse parking lot at approximately 11:10 in the morning. He entered the warehouse at 11:14. His Costco membership card, per the swipe record retained in Costco's customer database and obtained by Marjorie's attorney in a civil discovery motion filed later that year, registered at the entrance turnstile at 11:14 and 17 seconds. The Tukwila Costco is a mid-sized warehouse by Costco standards, approximately 140,000 square feet, with a single main entrance and a single main exit on the north side of the building, a tire center entrance on the west side with its own checkout, and a food court exit on the east side, which opens onto the outdoor food court seating area. The warehouse is covered by 47 interior camera angles and 11 exterior cameras. The warehouse employs a staff of loss prevention officers who monitor the exit turnstile to ensure that the items on every departing member's cart match the items on the receipt. Every Costco member must present a receipt at the exit to leave the warehouse. The exit turnstile is covered by 3 redundant cameras. The receipt checkers are also cameras themselves in the sense that the loss prevention system records every receipt handoff. Donovan Ayers's entry is recorded. His wandering through the warehouse is recorded. For the next 47 minutes, he is visible on interior cameras moving through the warehouse in the methodical manner characteristic of experienced Costco members. He pauses in the electronics section. He reads the ingredient label on a jar of pickled beets in the grocery section. He spends approximately 8 minutes examining a floor model television in home electronics. He moves to the grocery section, selects a pack of paper towels, places them in his cart. He moves to the dairy section, selects a gallon of whole milk, places it in his cart. At 12:01 in the afternoon, per the Costco camera timestamp log reviewed by Marjorie's attorney, Donovan Ayers is standing in front of the rotisserie chicken rack in the prepared foods section of the warehouse. The rotisserie chicken rack in a Costco is a centrally located heated display where whole-cooked chickens are placed for sale directly out of the rotisserie oven. The Costco corporate standard for rotisserie chickens is that they are removed from the rotisserie at a core temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit and placed on the heated display, and the heated display holds them at approximately 140 degrees for up to 4 hours before they are removed and discarded, if not sold. The rack is one of the most reliably hot objects in any Costco warehouse. Donovan took 2 rotisserie chickens from the rack. He placed them in the child seat of his shopping cart. He proceeded to move his cart away from the rotisserie chicken rack toward the checkout area on the west side of the warehouse. Donovan Ayers never reached the checkout. The next confirmed appearance of Donovan's shopping cart, containing his 2 rotisserie chickens, the gallon of milk, the paper towels, and 4 additional items he had apparently added to the cart after the rotisserie chicken purchase, occurred at 12:47 in the afternoon. The cart was located in the dairy aisle by another Costco member, a woman named Claudia Henner. Claudia approached a Costco manager and reported that the cart had been sitting unattended for at least 10 minutes and that the rotisserie chickens were still warm to the touch. The manager, following standard Costco protocol for abandoned perishables, checked the rotisserie chickens against the rack timestamp. The rotisserie chickens in Donovan's cart had been removed from the rotisserie oven at 11:45 that morning, per the rack's automated temperature log. The time was now 12:47. The chickens had been out of direct heat for 62 minutes, not the typical 4 hours of a Costco rotisserie chicken display. The manager noted that the chickens were still warm, which, given the 62-minute interval, was consistent with the chickens having been placed in the cart shortly before their discovery. Donovan Ayers was not in the dairy aisle. His cart was. The 2 warm rotisserie chickens were. The gallon of milk had begun to sweat condensation. The cart had been abandoned by someone who was no longer in the warehouse. Donovan's Costco membership card had not, at the time of the cart's discovery, registered at the exit turnstile. The exit turnstile log, obtained by Marjorie's attorney via subpoena in the subsequent civil action, confirmed that Donovan's card had not swiped out at any point that day. His card remained, for Costco's purposes, continuously inside the warehouse. Marjorie Ayers was notified by Costco management at approximately 2 in the afternoon. She drove to the warehouse. Donovan's silver Subaru Forester was in the parking lot, in a spot on the southwest corner, approximately 120 feet from the main entrance. His keys were in his pocket, per the standard practice he followed for Costco trips. His wallet and phone were in the glove compartment of the Subaru, which he had always locked using the valet key he kept on a magnetic holder under the front bumper. The King County Sheriff's Office was contacted at 3:12 in the afternoon. A missing persons investigation was initiated the following morning. Over the subsequent 4 months, the investigation reviewed every frame of Costco surveillance footage from February 4th, including the 47 interior cameras, the 11 exterior cameras, the tire center exit cameras, and the food court exit cameras. Donovan Ayers did not appear on any of the exit cameras at any point between 12:01 in the afternoon, when he had been last visibly in the warehouse at the rotisserie chicken rack, and the conclusion of the camera archive at midnight. The investigation also reviewed Costco's corporate database for membership card swipes. Donovan's card did not register at any exit. It did not register at any entry to any other Costco warehouse in the region over the subsequent months. The card has not been used since 12:01 in the afternoon on February 4th, 2021. Marjorie Ayers, when I interviewed her at her house in Burien in the summer of 2023, told me that she had saved one of the 2 rotisserie chickens. She had wrapped it in butcher paper and placed it in a chest freezer in her garage. She told me she did this on the morning of February 5th, after Costco management had released the cart's contents to her, per her written request. She told me she wrapped the chicken because she could not think of what else to do. She told me the chicken was still warm when she wrapped it, more than 20 hours after Donovan had placed it in his cart. I am reporting her account as she gave it. I do not have a way to verify the rotisserie chicken's temperature 20 hours after its transfer from the rack. Marjorie told me the chicken is still in the freezer. She showed me the freezer. She showed me the package. I did not open it. She told me she does not intend to. What I can verify from the documentary record is that 2 rotisserie chickens were placed in Donovan Ayers' cart at 12:01 in the afternoon on February 4th, 2021. That the chickens had been taken from the Costco rotisserie rack per the automated temperature log. That the cart was found abandoned in the dairy aisle 46 minutes later. That Donovan Ayers did not exit the warehouse through any monitored exit. That his vehicle remained in the lot. That his membership card has not been used since. Costco has not, in the 3.5 years since the incident, offered Marjorie a theory of what happened. Her civil action against Costco was dismissed on summary judgment in 2022. The court found that Costco had not breached any duty of care and that Marjorie had not established any facts that would support a negligence claim. The judge's opinion, which I have read in full, acknowledges that the court was unable to reconstruct how Donovan Ayers physically departed the warehouse. I stood in front of the rotisserie chicken rack at the Tukwila Costco in the spring of 2024. The rack looked the same as it looks at any Costco. There were 12 rotisserie chickens on the rack, stacked 3 high across 4 positions. The nearest one to me had a temperature log label indicating it had been removed from the oven 13 minutes earlier. I watched a man in his 60s take that chicken from the rack and place it in the child seat of his cart. He pushed his cart toward the checkout area. I watched him reach the checkout. The third case introduced me to the phrase ghost exit, and in this case, the surveillance archive itself appears to have been the site of the disappearance. Rachel Prewitt was 34 years old in the fall of 2015. She taught 10th grade English at a large suburban public high school in Baltimore County, Maryland. She was married to a man named Alex Prewitt, who worked as an accountant for a regional firm. They had one daughter, Iris, who was 6 years old and attending 1st grade at the elementary school 3 blocks from their house in a working-class neighborhood in Rosedale, a small unincorporated community on the eastern edge of Baltimore County. The Prewitts had been married for 9 years. On Wednesday evening, October 7, 2015, Rachel left the house at 6:15 in the evening. She told Alex she was going to the Target in the nearby White Marsh shopping area to return a coffee maker she had purchased 3 weeks earlier, which had stopped working. She intended to pick up a few other items while she was there. She told Alex she would be home by 8. She kissed Iris goodnight before leaving, because Iris typically went to bed at 7:30, and Rachel did not expect to be home before that. Rachel drove a beige Honda Civic. She arrived at the Target on Campbell Boulevard in White Marsh at 6:16 in the evening. She parked in the third row of the lot, approximately 80 feet from the main entrance. She carried the defective coffee maker in its original box, the receipt from her purchase of the coffee maker 3 weeks earlier, and a small canvas tote bag containing her wallet and her phone. She entered the Target at 6:18. She walked directly to the customer service counter at the front of the store. She waited in line for approximately 4 minutes. She presented the coffee maker and the receipt to the customer service associate, a young white American woman named Danielle Oakes, whose statement to the Baltimore County Police Department is part of the case file. Danielle processed the return. The transaction took approximately 7 minutes. The coffee maker, which had been purchased for $98.47, was refunded to Rachel's Visa credit card. The refund transaction timestamp in the Target corporate database is recorded as 6:29 and 11 seconds. Danielle printed the refund receipt, which I have reviewed as part of the case file material obtained by Alex Prewitt's attorney. The receipt shows the timestamp 6:29 and 11 seconds. Rachel took the receipt. She thanked Danielle. She turned away from the customer service counter and walked into the body of the store. For the next 20 minutes, Rachel Prewitt is visible on the Target interior surveillance system across approximately 9 distinct camera angles. She browses the housewares section. She examines a set of kitchen towels. She proceeds to the seasonal section, which in early October was stocked with Halloween decorations. She picks up a small ceramic pumpkin. She replaces it on the shelf. She proceeds to the women's clothing section. She selects 3 items from the racks: a sweater, a pair of jeans, and a long-sleeved blouse, and drapes them over her arm. She walks toward the back of the women's clothing department, where the fitting rooms are located. At 6:49 in the evening, per the Target camera logs reviewed in the subsequent investigation, Rachel Prewitt approached the fitting room attendant stand outside the women's fitting rooms. The fitting room attendant on duty that evening was a woman named Nora Pelham, who was 57 years old, and who had worked in the fitting rooms of that specific Target location for approximately 11 years. Nora's job, per Target corporate policy, was to log the number of garments each customer took into the fitting rooms, assign the customer to a specific numbered fitting room, note the time of entry, and check the customer out with the garments upon exit. Nora logged Rachel into fitting room number 2 at 6:49 and 31 seconds. The log indicates 3 garments taken in by Rachel, which matches the 3 items visible on the camera footage. Nora signed her initials on the log. The log page is in the case file. Target's fitting room procedure at the Campbell Boulevard location in 2015 included a fitting room attendant sweep every 15 minutes. The attendant would walk the fitting room corridor, knock on each occupied door, and verify that the customer was still using the room and intended to try on additional merchandise. Nora Pelham conducted her scheduled fitting room sweep at 7:04 that evening, 15 minutes after Rachel had entered. Nora knocked on the door of fitting room number 2. There was no response. She knocked again. She called Rachel's last name, which was on the log. There was no response. Nora opened the door of fitting room number 2. The fitting room was empty. The 3 garments Rachel had taken into the room were hanging on the single hook on the back wall. Rachel's canvas tote bag, containing her wallet and her phone, was sitting on the small bench inside the fitting room. Rachel was not in the fitting room. The fitting room had no window. The fitting room had a single door, which had been closed when Nora knocked, and which Nora had opened by turning the handle. The handle operated a standard interior lock that could only be engaged from inside the fitting room, but Nora's report indicates the door had not been locked. The door opened normally. Rachel Prewitt did not exit the fitting room through the door, per Nora's log, which recorded no exit. Rachel Prewitt did not pass Nora's attendant stand, which was the only route from the fitting rooms back into the body of the store, per Nora's account. The camera angle that covers the fitting room corridor, which includes the doors of all 6 fitting rooms and the pathway back into the women's clothing department, records the corridor continuously from 6:49, when Rachel entered fitting room number 2, through 7:04, when Nora opened the door. The Target Corporate Surveillance Archive, when it was subpoenaed by Alex Prewitt's attorney in 2016, produced the camera footage from that corridor for that 15-minute window. The footage does not show Rachel Prewitt exiting fitting room number 2. The footage does not show any person exiting fitting room number 2 at any point during those 15 minutes. What the footage also does not show, as the forensic video analyst the Prewitt family hired pointed out in his report, is Rachel Prewitt entering fitting room number 2. The camera captures the fitting room corridor, including the door of fitting room number 2. The footage shows Nora Pelham at her attendant stand. The footage does not show Rachel Prewitt walking down the corridor, approaching fitting room number 2, or entering it. Nora Pelham's written log confirms Rachel entered fitting room number 2 at 6:49 and 31 seconds. Nora's initials are on the log. Nora, when interviewed by the Baltimore County Police in the week after the disappearance, stated that she remembered Rachel entering the fitting room, that Rachel had been friendly, that Rachel had said something about the blouse being a potential Christmas gift for her mother. Nora had no doubt, in her interview, that Rachel had physically entered fitting room number 2. The footage does not show her doing so. The fitting room camera footage from the Campbell Boulevard Target on the evening of October 7, 2015, contains a 15-minute window during which Rachel Prewitt is neither visible entering fitting room number 2 nor visible exiting fitting room number 2, yet during which, per the fitting room attendant's contemporaneous log and testimony, Rachel Prewitt was inside fitting room number 2. Alex Prewitt's civil action against Target Corporation in 2017 sought, among other things, an expert forensic analysis of the fitting room camera footage to determine whether the footage had been altered. Target's corporate response, per the court filings, denied any alteration and provided the court with the original archive file hash codes, which indicated the footage had not been edited after its original recording. The forensic analyst hired by Alex Prewitt concluded that the footage appeared to be an unedited original recording. He also concluded that, given the camera angle and the lighting conditions, a person walking from Nora Pelham's attendant stand to fitting room number 2 should have been visible on the footage. His report notes that the absence of Rachel Prewitt from the footage, combined with Nora Pelham's sworn testimony that Rachel had been present, constitutes what the analyst called a forensic impossibility. Alex Prewitt's civil action was dismissed in 2018. The judge's opinion noted that the plaintiff had not established a theory of liability that accounted for the physical facts, and that the court was not in a position to rule on the mechanism of the plaintiff's wife's disappearance. Alex Prewitt, whom I interviewed in the spring of 2023 at a coffee shop in the Dundalk neighborhood of Baltimore, told me he hasn't remarried. He told me Iris is now 14 years old and attends a Catholic high school in Baltimore City because he could not bring himself to enroll her in the public high school where Rachel had taught. He told me that he has spoken with Nora Pelham on 3 occasions over the past 9 years. Nora Pelham retired from Target in 2017. She is now 74 years old. Alex told me that the last time he spoke with her, in 2022, Nora told him that she remembered Rachel's face clearly, that she remembered the log entry, that she remembered the sound of her own knock on the fitting room door, and that she remembered opening the door and finding the room empty. Nora told Alex that she has, for 9 years, been afraid that the footage is correct and her memory is wrong. She told Alex she has, for the same 9 years, been equally afraid that her memory is correct and that the footage is correct, and that both are true, and that both being true means something she does not have a way to think about. The Target at Campbell Boulevard in White Marsh, Maryland, closed in the spring of 2020. The chain's corporate real estate division had deemed the location unprofitable. The building was subsequently leased to a furniture retailer. The fitting rooms were demolished during the renovation. The retail space where fitting room number 2 had stood is now, per my visit to the location in spring of 2024, occupied by a display of sectional sofas. I stood in that display. I looked at the sofas. A salesman approached me to ask if I needed help. I told him I was looking. He went away. I stood there for approximately 11 minutes. I did not feel anything in particular. I did not learn anything. I left the store and drove back to my motel. The fourth case is the first case in this investigation that involves a completed retail transaction, which is to say, a case in which the subject paid for merchandise, took the receipt, and did not make it the 40 feet from the cash register to his parked vehicle. Calvin Westbrook had been a residential general contractor in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area of Texas for 29 years. He was 52 years old in April of 2009. He operated a small construction company out of a metal shop building on his own property in the town of Cedar Hill, a rapidly growing suburb approximately 20 miles southwest of downtown Dallas. His company employed, at the time of his disappearance, 4 full-time carpenters, 2 journeyman plumbers, and a rotating pool of subcontractors he brought in for electrical, roofing, and masonry work. Calvin had built the company from a single-man operation in the early 1990s into a stable operation that could reliably take on 4 to 6 residential remodeling projects in any given quarter. He was married to a woman named Irene Westbrook, who was 48, and who kept the company's books and handled the administrative side of the business from a home office. They had 2 adult sons, both in their mid-20s, neither of whom had entered the construction trade. Calvin held a Home Depot Pro Extra commercial account, the corporate program Home Depot operates for its professional contractor customers. The Pro Extra account allows a commercial account holder to receive bulk purchasing discounts, extended net 30 terms on larger orders, and, relevant to the case, generates a detailed transaction log of every purchase associated with the account. Calvin had been enrolled in Pro Extra since its initial rollout in 2006. The account was, per Irene's records, the primary means by which Calvin purchased the bulk materials and specialty tools his company needed. He visited the Home Depot on Pleasant Run Road in Cedar Hill, an average of 11 times per month, per the Pro Extra transaction log Irene retained and later shared with me. On the morning of Thursday, April 9, 2009, Calvin left his property in Cedar Hill at 6:55 in the morning in his 1999 Ford F-250 pickup truck, a white extended cab work truck with his company name stenciled on the doors. He was scheduled to begin a kitchen remodel at a client's house in the Mountain Creek neighborhood at 8 that morning, and he intended to stop at the Home Depot on Pleasant Run Road on his way to the job site to pick up 4 bags of quick-setting concrete mix for a small patio footer, a specific Ryobi drill bit set his carpenter had requested, and a roll of Teflon plumbing tape for an unexpected waterline issue that had emerged at the job the previous afternoon. Calvin arrived at the Home Depot on Pleasant Run Road at 7:02 in the morning. The store had been open since 6. 7:02 is a routine commercial hour for a residential contractor. The store at that hour typically had between 15 and 30 customers in the building, the majority of them contractors like Calvin, picking up supplies before the start of the workday. Calvin parked his truck in the contractor parking area on the west side of the lot, approximately 200 feet from the main entrance and approximately 140 feet from the lumberyard gate. He entered the store at 7:03. He took a standard flatbed cart from the cart area inside the entrance. He walked directly to the building materials section on the east side of the store. He loaded 4 bags of 80-pound quick-reat, quick-setting concrete mix onto his flatbed. He then proceeded to the tool aisle. He selected the Ryobi drill bit set. He proceeded to the plumbing aisle. He selected the Teflon tape. He walked to the contractor checkout at the front of the store. He checked out at 7:31 in the morning. The transaction is recorded in his Pro Extra account log, which I have reviewed as part of Irene's case file. The transaction total was $94.11. The receipt was printed and handed to Calvin. Calvin placed the receipt in the chest pocket of his denim work shirt, per the surveillance footage of the checkout, which the Cedar Hill Police Department obtained in their subsequent investigation. Calvin then pushed his flatbed cart toward the lumberyard gate, which is the standard procedure at Home Depot stores for contractors who have purchased bulk materials. Bulk materials like bags of concrete are typically loaded directly into a contractor's vehicle through the lumberyard gate, rather than carried out through the main entrance. Home Depot maintains a separate camera coverage at the lumberyard gate because the gate is a separate ingress and egress point from the main entrance and requires verification of the receipt by a yard attendant before a customer is permitted to leave with their materials. The lumberyard gate camera recorded Calvin Westbrook approaching the gate at 7:33 in the morning. The camera recorded Calvin handing his receipt to the yard attendant on duty, a man named Leonard Cortez, who verified that the items on Calvin's flatbed matched the items on the receipt. Leonard stamped the receipt, which is the standard Home Depot procedure, to indicate that the customer is authorized to leave the yard with the materials. Leonard handed the stamped receipt back to Calvin. The camera footage shows Leonard turning to process the next contractor in line. The camera footage shows Calvin turning his flatbed toward the lumberyard gate, which opens onto the lumberyard itself, and beyond that, onto the contractor parking area where Calvin's Ford F-250 was parked. Calvin Westbrook pushed his flatbed cart through the lumberyard gate. He is visible on the gate camera for approximately 3 more seconds, his back to the camera, moving into the lumberyard. The lumberyard at the Cedar Hill Home Depot is covered by 4 additional cameras, one at the south end of the yard, covering the approach to the contractor parking area, one at the north end of the yard, covering the return to the main store, 2 on the central pathway. The 4 lumberyard cameras record continuously, and the footage is stored on the same corporate surveillance archive as the gate camera and the interior cameras. The lumberyard cameras recorded on the morning of April 9th, 2009, and the footage was subsequently reviewed by the Cedar Hill Police in the investigation of Calvin's disappearance. The South Yard camera, which was the camera that should have captured Calvin's approach to the contractor parking area, did not capture him. The North Yard camera, which would have captured any movement back toward the main store, did not capture him. The 2 central pathway cameras did not capture him. The final 3 seconds of Calvin's appearance on the lumberyard gate camera, with his back to the camera and his flatbed cart in front of him, constitute the last surveillance evidence of Calvin Westbrook's presence on Earth. The contractor parking area where Calvin's Ford F-250 was parked is visible from the lumberyard through a chain-link fence and a gate that remains open during business hours. The distance from the gate's north side, where Calvin had been last visible, to his truck is approximately 130 feet. At the standard pace of a contractor pushing a loaded flatbed cart, the trip should have taken approximately 40 seconds. Calvin's truck remained in the parking area through the end of that day and through the following 12 days, when the Cedar Hill Police finally authorized Irene to have it towed home. The 4 bags of concrete mix were not in the truck. They were not on the flatbed, which was also missing. They were not in the lumberyard. The Ryobi drill bit set and the roll of Teflon tape, which had been on the flatbed along with the concrete bags, were not recovered anywhere on the premises. They were not in the truck. They have not been recovered. The stamped receipt was not on Calvin's body because Calvin's body has not been recovered. The receipt has not been turned in. It has not surfaced. Irene Westbrook, when she obtained the Pro Extra account transaction log through discovery in her civil action against Home Depot in 2011, told her attorney that the transaction record alone constituted proof that Calvin had completed his purchase and that therefore he had been alive and coherent at 7:31 on April 9th, and that therefore his disappearance had occurred within the 40-second window between the lumberyard gate and the parking area. The Cedar Hill Police Department investigated the case for 3 years. They conducted a detailed examination of the lumberyard surveillance archive, which confirmed that no person matching Calvin's description left the lumberyard through any of the 4 cameras. They conducted interviews with Leonard Cortez, the yard attendant, who recalled Calvin clearly and who had no explanation for his disappearance. They conducted interviews with the 11 other contractors who had been in the lumber yard that morning, none of whom recalled seeing Calvin after he passed through the gate. They conducted a search of Calvin's truck, which contained no evidence of a struggle, no evidence of any unusual activity, and which contained, in the glove compartment, the previous day's stamped receipt from a Home Depot visit the previous afternoon, routinely filed where Calvin always filed his Home Depot receipts. The receipt from April 9th was not in the glove compartment. The receipt from April 9th has never been seen after Leonard Cortez handed it back to Calvin. Irene Westbrook's civil action against Home Depot was dismissed in 2012. The judge's opinion, which is on the public record in the Northern District of Texas, noted that the plaintiff had not established facts sufficient to support a theory of negligence, that the camera coverage had been adequate to the standard of care required of a commercial retailer, and that the court could not assign liability for a disappearance that, per the physical evidence, had occurred outside the scope of any retailer control. The opinion acknowledged that the disappearance was not explicable by any ordinary mechanism, and that the court was unable to rule on what had actually happened. Irene told me, when I visited her at her home in Cedar Hill in the summer of 2023, that she had sold Calvin's construction company in 2012, when she could no longer keep the administrative side of it functioning on her own. She told me she had kept Calvin's work truck in the driveway for 3 years after his disappearance. She told me she finally had it removed by a towing company in 2012, when the registration had lapsed and the county had begun issuing notices. She told me she had expected, at some point during those 3 years, that Calvin would come home and ask her where his truck was. She told me she stopped expecting this at some point in the summer of 2011, though she could not identify the specific day on which the expectation ended. She told me that the 4 bags of concrete mix he had purchased that morning have been on her mind for 14 years. She told me she does not know why specifically those 4 bags of concrete, as opposed to any of the other items Calvin handled in the course of his work, are what she thinks about. She told me she has, on 3 separate occasions over the past 14 years, driven to the Home Depot on Pleasant Run Road and bought 4 bags of Quikrete quick-setting concrete mix and brought them home and stacked them in Calvin's workshop behind the house. She told me she is not sure why she does this. She told me the 3 separate sets of 4 bags, 12 bags total, are stacked in the workshop. She told me she has no intention of using them. She told me she may buy another 4 bags this year for the 15th anniversary of his disappearance, though she has not made up her mind. The 5th case occurred during the approach of a hurricane, under conditions that the regional retail corporate procedures explicitly address, which makes it one of the strangest cases in this investigation for reasons I will explain after I describe what happened. Charlotte Linwood had turned 73 in the spring of 2012. She was a widow. Her husband, Harold Linwood, had died of congestive heart failure in 2008. Charlotte had continued to live in the small concrete block house in Fort Myers, Florida, that she and Harold had bought together in 1971. The house was situated in a neighborhood approximately 6 miles inland from the Gulf of Mexico, in a low-lying area that had been subjected to flooding during Hurricane Charley in 2004, and that was considered vulnerable to storm surge during any major tropical system. On Monday, August 27, 2012, the National Hurricane Center had issued a hurricane warning for the Florida Peninsula in advance of Hurricane Isaac, which was at that time a Category 1 hurricane approaching from the southeast across the Gulf of Mexico. The projected track of Isaac, per the NHC's 11:01 in the morning advisory that day, placed the storm's center passing approximately 120 miles west of Fort Myers, with tropical storm force winds expected to reach the Fort Myers area by late that evening. The Lee County Emergency Management Office had issued a voluntary evacuation order for low-lying coastal areas and had placed residents of inland neighborhoods on standby for a potential mandatory evacuation order depending on the storm's final track. Charlotte Linwood had no intention of evacuating. She had lived through Donna in 1960, through Charlie in 2004, through Wilma in 2005. She had a screened porch that Harold had rebuilt with hurricane-rated construction in 2006. She had a generator. She had hurricane shutters on every window. What she did not have, per her conversation with her daughter Linnea Stratton, who lived in Tampa, was a month's supply of her prescription thyroid medication. Her prescription, issued for a 90-day supply, had expired on August 23rd, and the prescription had been refilled and was ready for pickup at the pharmacy counter of the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Colonial Boulevard in Fort Myers. Charlotte's son-in-law, Gregory Stratton, had offered to drive down from Tampa and pick up the prescription for her, but Charlotte had refused. She told Linnea she could drive to the Walmart herself. She told Linnea she had no intention of sitting through a hurricane without her thyroid medication. She told Linnea she would drive to the Walmart that morning, before the weather deteriorated, and would be home by 10. Charlotte Linwood drove her husband's old 1998 Buick LeSabre to the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Colonial Boulevard. The Walmart Neighborhood Market is a smaller Walmart format, approximately 42,000 square feet, that focuses on grocery and pharmacy rather than general merchandise. The store on Colonial Boulevard had a main entrance, an exit adjacent to the pharmacy on the west side of the building, and a fire door on the rear north side. The store was covered by 12 interior cameras and 5 exterior cameras. On August 27, 2012, the store was, per the manager's later statement to the Lee County Sheriff's Office, operating at approximately 3 times normal customer volume due to pre-hurricane stocking up by residents of the surrounding area. The store's intercom system was running automated weather advisories every 15 minutes, directing customers to the front of the store for emergency preparedness items. Charlotte arrived at the store at 8:14 in the morning. She parked in the third row of the lot, approximately 90 feet from the main entrance. She entered the store at 8:16. She walked directly to the pharmacy counter at the back of the store. She waited in line for approximately 9 minutes. She presented her pharmacy loyalty card and her driver's license to the pharmacy technician, a young white American woman named Amanda Teagle, who retrieved Charlotte's prescription from the pharmacy's ready pickup bin. Amanda processed the transaction. Charlotte paid the copay of $11 in cash. Amanda handed Charlotte the prescription in a small white paper bag. Charlotte signed the signature log, which I have reviewed as part of the Lee County case file. The signature is dated August 27, 2012, timed 8:47 in the morning. Charlotte turned away from the pharmacy counter. She pushed her shopping cart, which contained at that point only the bag with her prescription, into the body of the store. For the next 25 minutes, Charlotte is visible on the Walmart interior surveillance footage across approximately 7 camera angles. She selects a quart of whole milk. She selects a loaf of bread. She selects 3 cans of chicken noodle soup. She selects a box of crackers. She selects, as a final addition to her cart, a small fresh tomato from the produce section, which she examines carefully before placing in a thin produce bag and then in the cart. At 9:12 in the morning, per the Walmart interior camera timestamp, Charlotte Linwood is in the dairy aisle at the back of the store. She is adjusting the position of the milk in her cart. She appears to be preparing to move toward the checkout. That is the last frame in which Charlotte Linwood appears. The frame immediately following, approximately 1/10 of a second later at the camera's standard frame rate, does not show Charlotte. The dairy aisle is empty of any person. The cart is where Charlotte left it. The cart remains in the same position on the aisle floor for the following 6 hours, during which time Walmart associates periodically walk past the cart without moving it, because abandoned carts during hurricane preparation periods were, per the manager's later testimony, so common as to be unremarkable. Charlotte's prescription, which had been in her cart, was in the cart when associates finally moved the cart to the abandoned merchandise area at 3:30 that afternoon. The prescription was turned in to the pharmacy counter, where the pharmacy technician who had dispensed it, Amanda Teagle, recognized the white bag and, per her statement, became immediately concerned. Amanda attempted to call Charlotte at the phone number in the pharmacy's customer database. The call went directly to voicemail. Amanda notified the store manager at 4 in the afternoon. Linnea Stratton, Charlotte's daughter in Tampa, called her mother at approximately 4:30 that afternoon to check on her before the storm. The call went directly to voicemail. Linnea called repeatedly over the following 3 hours. She called the Lee County Sheriff at 7:45 that evening. By that time, Hurricane Isaac had made landfall in Louisiana, approximately 500 miles to the west, and the tropical storm force winds that had been predicted for Fort Myers had largely missed the area, which received only moderate rain and gusty wind. The Lee County Sheriff arrived at Charlotte's house at 8 that evening. Charlotte's Buick LeSabre was not in the driveway. The house was dark. The hurricane shutters were up. The generator was in its storage location. Charlotte had clearly not returned home from her Walmart trip that morning. The sheriff proceeded to the Walmart neighborhood market on Colonial Boulevard. Charlotte's Buick was in the third row of the lot, in the same space where she had parked at 8:14 that morning. Her purse was on the passenger seat. Her phone was in the purse, turned off. The car was locked. The Lee County Sheriff's investigation reviewed the Walmart interior and exterior surveillance footage over the following 2 weeks. The interior footage, as I have described, captured Charlotte up through the 9/12 frame in the dairy aisle, and did not capture her thereafter. The exterior footage, covering the main entrance, the pharmacy exit, and the rear fire door, did not capture Charlotte exiting the store at any point after her 9/12 disappearance from interior coverage. What the exterior footage did capture, which makes this case particularly difficult to reconcile with any ordinary explanation, is Charlotte's absence during a period when the exterior cameras were operating at peak capture quality. Due to the hurricane protocol in effect, Walmart's corporate loss prevention had remotely activated what the company called high-resolution storm mode on the exterior cameras, which doubled the frame rate and increased the image resolution for the purpose of monitoring potential looting or property damage during the anticipated storm. The storm mode footage from the 3 exterior cameras covering the main entrance, the pharmacy exit, and the rear fire door was of higher quality than any other footage from that store on any normal day. The footage, when reviewed by the sheriff's investigators, contained no frame in which Charlotte Linwood exited the building through any of the 3 monitored exits. The loading dock at the rear of the Walmart, per the store manager's statement, was closed and locked throughout the day of August 27th due to the hurricane protocol. Deliveries had been suspended. The loading dock camera, which was part of the enhanced storm mode recording, showed no activity at the dock beyond 2 store employees conducting a standard closure inspection at 10 in the morning. Charlotte Linwood, per the physical evidence the Lee County Sheriff's Office collected, was inside the Walmart neighborhood market on Colonial Boulevard at 9:12 in the morning on August 27, 2012. She was not inside the store by the following morning, when the store was subjected to a full interior sweep by Walmart loss prevention personnel. She had not exited through any monitored exit. The store had no unmonitored exits. Linnea Stratton, whom I interviewed at her home in Tampa in the summer of 2022, told me that her mother had been, in the months before her disappearance, in excellent health for a 73-year-old. She told me her mother had walked 2 miles every morning in the neighborhood. She told me her mother had weighed approximately 140 pounds, had good vision, had full cognitive function, and had no diagnoses that would suggest sudden collapse. She told me her mother had been looking forward to her granddaughter's high school graduation the following spring. Linnea told me that she sometimes wonders whether the hurricane, which had been predicted to hit Fort Myers directly, but which had veered west at the last moment, had played some role in what happened to her mother. She told me this was not a rational thought, that she did not believe weather systems could affect individual people, that she understood hurricanes were atmospheric phenomena with no agency. She told me the thought was simply a thought she had, not a belief. I told her I understood. I told her I had, in the course of this investigation, encountered several variants of that thought. The sixth case takes place in the early morning hours before the store was open to the general public, and the conditions should have made the disappearance impossible because there were no other customers in the building at the relevant time. Eugene Varick had been 58 for 3 months when he disappeared in September of 2019. He was the head buyer for a small wholesale restaurant equipment distribution company based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His company operated as an intermediary between manufacturers and small independent restaurants in the Albuquerque metropolitan area and the surrounding rural communities. Eugene's job was to identify bulk restaurant supplies, commercial kitchen equipment, commercial cleaning products, and other operational supplies at prices that his company could resell at a profit to their restaurant clients. He held a Sam's Club business membership, which is a tier of Sam's Club membership that grants the holder early morning access to the warehouses for buying purposes before the general members' opening at 7 in the morning. The Sam's Club business membership early access hours at the Albuquerque location were in 2019, 4 in the morning through 7 in the morning on most weekdays. The store was not open to general members during those hours. The checkout lanes did not open until the general member hours began. Business members could enter the warehouse, select merchandise, and place it on hold in the business member service area for pickup after the general opening. Business members could not, during early access hours, check out and leave the warehouse with merchandise. They could, however, leave the warehouse empty-handed at any time during the early access hours by swiping their membership card at the exit turnstile, which was staffed during early access hours by a single loss prevention officer, whose job was to verify the early access status of anyone entering or leaving. Eugene Varick arrived at the Sam's Club on Coors Boulevard in Albuquerque at 4:22 in the morning on Thursday, September 5, 2019. The parking lot was largely empty. The entrance to the early access area was monitored by a single loss prevention officer named Reginald Pruitt, who had worked the early access shift at that store for approximately 8 years. Reginald verified Eugene's business membership card, noted his entry time in the log, and permitted Eugene to proceed into the warehouse. Eugene entered the warehouse at 4:22 and 41 seconds. The warehouse at that hour contained, per Reginald's later statement, no other customers and approximately 7 stocking employees. The interior lighting was at standard daytime level because the stocking employees required full illumination. The warehouse was, by every measure Reginald could provide, a normal commercial interior, unremarkable except for the absence of other customers. Eugene's business membership card did not register at any exit turnstile at any point during the subsequent 2 hours and 41 minutes. At 7:03 in the morning, when the store opened to general members, a stocking employee named Hector Barella was completing a morning restock of the office supply aisle. Hector had moved from the warehouse receiving area to the office supply aisle at approximately 6:50 in the morning, per his shift activity log. His assigned restock task was the printer cartridge section of the office supply aisle, which required him to transfer cartridges from a restock pallet to the shelves. Hector noticed, upon entering the office supply aisle, an abandoned shopping cart sitting approximately halfway down the aisle. The cart contained a box of disposable gloves, 2 commercial-grade dish soap dispensers, a case of food service gloves, a stack of stainless steel prep bowls, and, in the child seat of the cart, a brown leather messenger bag. Hector knew, per Sam's Club policy, that an abandoned cart containing a personal bag was an unusual finding. He notified his shift supervisor. The supervisor located the loss prevention officer on duty, who at that point was Reginald Pruitt still, and who recognized the messenger bag from having noted it when Eugene Varick had entered the warehouse at 4:22 that morning. The messenger bag contained Eugene's wallet, his cell phone, his keys, and his company ID. The cart's merchandise matched, per Reginald's assessment, the kind of restaurant supply items Eugene was known to purchase for his wholesale operation. Eugene Varick was not in the office supply aisle. Eugene Varick was not anywhere in the warehouse. A full interior sweep was conducted by Sam's Club management and loss prevention over the following 3 hours. The warehouse was not large by Sam's Club standards, approximately 120,000 square feet, and the sweep was thorough. Eugene was not located. The sweep included the walk-in freezers, the bathroom facilities, the employee break room, the tire installation area, the loading dock, and the office supply storage rooms on the upper mezzanine. The sweep produced no evidence of Eugene's location. The Albuquerque police were contacted at 10:30 in the morning. The investigation that followed included a review of all 7 of the stocking employees who had been present during the early access hours. None of the 7 reported seeing Eugene at any point. None of the 7 reported any unusual activity. The review of the surveillance footage covered all 33 interior cameras and all 14 exterior cameras for the period from 4:22 in the morning through 10 in the morning. Eugene Varick is visible on the interior cameras for approximately 31 minutes, from his entry at 4:22 through his last captured frame at 4:53, during which he is moving through the warehouse in a methodical manner, evaluating merchandise. His last captured frame shows him entering the office supply aisle at 4:53. He is not captured exiting the aisle. The camera that covers the office supply aisle was, per the Sam's Club corporate IT department, operating continuously through the relevant period. The camera recorded the aisle. The aisle is visible in the recording. Eugene is not in the aisle after 4:53, and he is not shown leaving the aisle. The exterior cameras, which covered the main entrance, the tire center entrance, the loading dock, the fire doors on the north and east sides of the building, and the employee entrance on the west side, did not capture Eugene exiting the building at any point between 4:22 in the morning and 10 in the morning. The exterior footage includes the business member exit turnstile, which, as I have noted, did not register any swipe of Eugene's membership card. Eugene Varick was, per the physical evidence, inside the Sam's Club on Coors Boulevard at 4:53 in the morning on September 5, 2019, and was not inside the warehouse at the time of the 10:30 morning internal sweep. He did not exit through any monitored exit. His membership card did not swipe. His vehicle, a gray Chevrolet Tahoe with his company logo on the doors, remained in the parking lot for 7 days before his company authorized towing. Eugene was not married. His parents had died in the early 2000s. His closest surviving relative was his younger brother, Reese Varick, who lived in Phoenix, Arizona. Reese traveled to Albuquerque when he was notified of Eugene's disappearance. Reese spent 4 days in Albuquerque, reviewing what the police would share of the investigation, speaking with Eugene's colleagues at the wholesale company, and visiting the Sam's Club. Reese returned to Phoenix without any additional information. I interviewed Reese Varick by phone in the autumn of 2023. He told me his brother had been a methodical, orderly person who had never, in his entire adult life, been known to deviate from a planned course of action. He told me that the idea of Eugene simply walking away from a cart of restaurant supplies, leaving his messenger bag with his wallet and phone and keys in the cart, was inconsistent with every attribute of Eugene's personality. He told me that the physical impossibility of Eugene having exited the warehouse without registering his membership card on the exit turnstile was a secondary concern to him, because the personality impossibility, as he described it, was primary. Reese told me his brother had been planning to purchase a condominium in the North Valley neighborhood of Albuquerque. The down payment had been in Eugene's savings account. The realtor had scheduled a closing date for October 15th of 2019. The closing did not occur. The down payment is still in the account, which Reese has not closed, because closing the account would require a legal declaration of Eugene's death, and Reese has not been willing to pursue such a declaration. Eugene, as a matter of administrative status in the state of New Mexico, remains a missing person. Reese told me he expects this status to continue indefinitely. The 7th case unfolds in a 24-hour grocery store during the overnight hours, and the subject's cell phone continued to connect to the store's Wi-Fi network for 4 hours after her last visible camera appearance. Patricia Kessler was 41 years old in the summer of 2023. She was a pediatric dental hygienist at a small practice in the Atlanta suburb of Marietta, Georgia. She had grown up in the area and had lived in the same zip code her entire adult life. She was divorced, with no children of her own. She owned a small ranch house with a fenced backyard for her rescue dog, a shepherd mix named Otis. She worked a standard Monday through Friday schedule, and on Friday evenings she typically did her grocery shopping at the Kroger location on Roswell Road, which was approximately a mile and a half from her house, open 24 hours, and reliably quiet in the late evening hours after the daytime shopping crowd had dispersed. The Kroger on Roswell Road had opened as a 24-hour store in 2018 and had maintained its overnight operation through the summer of 2023, despite the broader industry trend toward reducing overnight hours at grocery locations. The store was one of the larger Kroger formats, approximately 70,000 square feet, with a full pharmacy, a wine and beer department, a bakery, a deli, and a small seating area near the front entrance for customers who wanted to consume prepared deli foods on the premises. The store was covered by 28 interior cameras and 9 exterior cameras. The Kroger corporate loss prevention system archived the footage for 90 days as a matter of standard corporate policy. On the evening of Friday, June 16, 2023, Patricia Kessler left her house at approximately 11:30 in the evening. She had fed Otis. She had let him out into the backyard for his evening bathroom. She had locked the back door. She told Otis she would be back in an hour, per her regular habit of talking to the dog. She drove her 2020 Subaru Outback to the Kroger on Roswell Road. Patricia arrived at the store at 11:44 in the evening. She parked in the third row of the lot, in a space approximately 60 feet from the main entrance, which was her preferred spot, because it was under one of the parking lot light poles. The lot was lightly occupied. Per the exterior camera footage subsequently reviewed in the civil discovery process initiated by her brother, Miles Kessler, there were fewer than 30 vehicles in the entire lot at that hour. Patricia entered the store at 11:47. She took a shopping cart from the cart corral just inside the main entrance. She pulled her phone out of her back pocket, per the interior camera footage, and appeared to check the Kroger digital coupon app. The Kroger digital coupon system, which is integrated with the Kroger Plus loyalty card program, allows customers to clip digital coupons to their loyalty card using the store's smartphone app, and the coupons are automatically applied when the customer's loyalty card is scanned at checkout. Patricia was a frequent user of the digital coupon system. For the next 11 minutes, Patricia moved through the store in an ordinary pattern. She selected a bag of organic baby spinach from the produce cooler. She selected a half-gallon of almond milk from the dairy case. She stopped at the produce scale near the citrus display at 11:52 in the evening. She placed a small bunch of bananas on the scale. She used her phone to scan the Kroger Plus barcode on the scale, per the interior camera and per the scale's own internal transaction log, which recorded a weighing of 1.47 pounds of bananas at 11:52 and 14 seconds. She placed the bananas in her cart. She proceeded toward the back of the store. At 11:58 in the evening, per the interior camera timestamp, Patricia Kessler entered the pet food aisle. The camera that covers the pet food aisle captured her entry. She is visible for approximately 40 seconds, walking along the pet food aisle in the direction of the premium dog food section at the far end of the aisle. She passes out of frame at the end of the aisle. The next camera, which covers the adjacent frozen food aisle that runs perpendicular to the pet food aisle, does not capture her. The camera that covers the back freezer wall, which is the only other exit from the pet food aisle, does not capture her. Patricia Kessler walked into the pet food aisle at 11:58 in the evening. She did not walk out. What the Kroger corporate loss prevention system did subsequently capture was a record of Patricia's phone continuing to connect to the store's Wi-Fi network for the next 4 hours and 13 minutes. The Kroger store Wi-Fi network, which is available to customers who have registered their Kroger Plus loyalty account with the network, logs the connection events of every registered device. Patricia's phone, which was registered to her Kroger account, had connected to the network at 11:44 that evening when she had entered the parking lot. The connection log showed the phone remaining continuously connected through the store's Wi-Fi from that point forward, with regular signal strength readings updated every 30 seconds. The log also showed which access point in the store the phone was connecting to, because the Kroger Wi-Fi infrastructure used a mesh network architecture with multiple access points throughout the building, and the system recorded which access point was handling the device's connection at each update. Patricia's phone remained connected to the access point covering the pet food aisle from 11:58 in the evening through approximately 1:30 in the morning on June 17th. At 1:30 in the morning, the access point handling the connection changed to the access point, covering the loading dock area at the back of the store. From 1:30 through 4:11 in the morning, Patricia's phone was connected to the loading dock access point. At 4:11 in the morning on June 17th, Patricia Kessler's phone signal dropped from the Kroger Wi-Fi network. It has not reconnected. The loading dock at the Kroger on Roswell Road is a secure area accessed only by authorized Kroger employees through a coded entry system. The camera that covers the loading dock recorded continuously on the night of June 16th and the morning of June 17th. The camera footage was subsequently reviewed by the Cobb County Police Department in the investigation of Patricia's disappearance. The footage shows the loading dock. The footage does not show any unauthorized person at the loading dock at any point during the relevant period. The footage does not show Patricia Kessler. The footage does not show anyone carrying anything that could have been Patricia Kessler. The Kroger corporate IT department, when subpoenaed by Miles Kessler's attorney in the civil action filed in 2023, confirmed the Wi-Fi connection records and confirmed that the connection from Patricia's phone could not have been spoofed or remotely replicated. The connection records indicate, per the IT department's sworn declaration, that Patricia's phone was physically present in the Kroger building through 4:11 in the morning on June 17th. The records are inconsistent with any theory that the phone had been removed from the building and used at a separate location. Patricia's phone was never recovered. It was not in her car, which remained in the parking lot for 11 days before Miles authorized towing. It was not in her house, where Miles had access through the spare key Patricia had given him years earlier. It was not on her person, because her person has not been recovered. The last known location of the phone, per the physical connection records in the Kroger Wi-Fi infrastructure, is the loading dock of the Kroger on Roswell Road at 4:11 in the morning on June 17th, 2023. Miles Kessler, whom I interviewed in the spring of 2024 at a restaurant near his office in Decatur, Georgia, told me that his sister had been the closest person to him in the world. He told me that he had, in the 11 months since her disappearance, driven to the Kroger on Roswell Road on 23 separate occasions. He told me he had walked into the pet food aisle on each of those occasions. He told me he had stood at the back of the aisle at the point where the camera had last captured his sister before she failed to appear on any adjacent camera. He told me the aisle looks like any pet food aisle in any Kroger in the country. He told me that the premium dog food section at the end of the aisle carries the brand his sister had bought for Otis, and that every time he stands in the aisle, he is tempted to buy a bag, and that he has never bought one. He told me Otis was taken in by their parents after Patricia's disappearance and lives with them in the house where Miles and Patricia had grown up. He told me Otis is still alive, now 10 years old, and that every time Miles visits his parents, Otis sits at the front window for approximately 20 minutes before Miles arrives. Miles told me he does not have a theory about what happened to his sister. He told me the Wi-Fi connection record is, to him, the most difficult piece of evidence to accept. He told me the idea that his sister was physically in the Kroger for 4 hours after the camera had lost her, connected to the network, her phone continuing to generate regular signal strength readings, and that she had been at the loading dock during the final 2 hours and 41 minutes without any camera capturing her presence at the dock, was, in his words, a sequence of facts that he could put in order, but could not make sense. He told me he understands the difference. Orson McKellar was 67 years old in the autumn of 2016. He had retired 4 years earlier from a 39-year career as a railroad conductor for a freight line operating in the northern Great Plains. He had worked the same long-haul route between Minneapolis and Winnipeg for the last 17 years of his career. He was a widower. His wife, Eileen, had died of ovarian cancer in 2010. Orson had not remarried. He lived alone in a small house in the town of Bemidji, a regional hub in the lake country of north-central Minnesota, approximately 160 miles south of the Canadian border. Orson had 2 adult children, a son in Duluth and a daughter in Minneapolis, neither of whom he saw more than 3 or 4 times a year. Orson had developed, in the years after Eileen's death, a pattern of severe insomnia that had become, by 2015, chronic. He slept in disrupted increments, typically 2 or 3 hours at a time, and his wakeful periods frequently occurred between the hours of 2 and 5 in the morning. He had, during these wakeful periods, developed a routine of driving to the 24-hour Walmart supercenter on the west side of Bemidji, where he would walk the aisles, drink coffee in the McDonald's inside the store, and return home after the sky began to lighten. He did this, per his daughter's later statement, approximately 4 nights a week. He did not shop on these visits. He walked. The Walmart on Paul Bunyan Drive in Bemidji was a standard supercenter format, approximately 190,000 square feet, operating 24 hours a day. Between 2 and 5 in the morning, the store was, per the testimony of the overnight shift manager, typically occupied by fewer than 30 customers and approximately 15 stocking employees. The store was covered by 72 interior cameras and 12 exterior cameras, monitored continuously by a single loss prevention officer on the overnight shift. The footage was archived per Walmart corporate policy for 60 days. On the morning of Wednesday, November 2, 2016, Orson McKellar drove to the Walmart on Paul Bunyan Drive. He arrived at 2:31 in the morning. He parked in the first row of the lot, directly under a sodium vapor light pole, per his regular habit. The exterior camera captured his entry into the parking lot. He walked across the lot to the main entrance and entered the store at 2:33. He took a shopping cart, which was his routine, because the cart gave him something to lean on as he walked the aisles. He walked through the grocery section. He walked through the health and beauty section. He walked through the electronics section. At approximately 2:52, per the interior camera timestamps, he was in the breakfast cereal aisle. He selected a box of Frosted Flakes from the shelf and placed the box in his cart. This was an unusual action for him, per his daughter's later statement, because his night visits did not typically include any purchases. The selection was recorded on 3 separate cameras covering the breakfast cereal aisle. Orson proceeded toward the front of the store with the box of Frosted Flakes in his cart. At approximately 2:57 in the morning, he passed through the toy aisle. The toy aisle at the Bemidji Walmart is a central spine of the store, running approximately 90 feet north to south, connecting the grocery side of the store to the home goods side. The aisle is covered by a single camera mounted on the central ceiling truss above the aisle. The camera is a standard Walmart corporate surveillance unit. The camera recorded Orson McKellar entering the toy aisle at 2:57 and 41 seconds. The camera recorded his cart passing the south end of the aisle. The camera recorded his walking pace, which was slow, the pace of a man in no hurry. The camera did not record Orson McKellar exiting the toy aisle. The Walmart corporate surveillance archive for the toy aisle camera, when it was subpoenaed by the Beltrami County Sheriff's Office in the subsequent investigation and released to the investigating detective, contained the recording through 2:57 and 41 seconds, at which point the recording ended. The next saved frame from that camera began at 3:16 and 22 seconds, 18 minutes and 41 seconds later. The 18 minutes and 41 seconds of missing footage were not the result of a camera malfunction, per the Walmart corporate IT department's internal audit report, which I have reviewed. The camera itself, the data feed from the camera to the Walmart local storage server, and the transfer from the local server to the corporate archive had all functioned normally through the relevant period. The footage had been recorded, transmitted, and stored. The footage was then, at some point between November 2nd, 2016, and the sheriff's subpoena in January of 2017, removed from the archive. The Walmart IT audit identified the 18 minutes and 41 seconds as the only missing footage segment in the entire archive of the Bemidji store for the 3 months preceding the subpoena. Every other camera, every other time window was complete. The single gap was the toy aisle camera, covering the period from 2:57:41 through 3:16:22 on the morning of November 2nd, 2016. The gap corresponded precisely to the window during which Orson McKellar, per the surrounding footage, was in the toy aisle. The Walmart IT audit did not identify how the footage had been removed. The audit found no record of any authorized deletion request. The audit found no evidence of external intrusion into the corporate surveillance system. The audit concluded that the footage had been removed through an unknown mechanism by an unidentified actor, and that the removal had occurred without leaving any log entry that the surveillance system typically generates when footage is accessed, viewed, or deleted. Orson McKellar did not exit the toy aisle. His cart, with the box of Frosted Flakes, was located by a stocking employee at 3:24 in the morning, sitting at the north end of the toy aisle, approximately where the toy aisle meets the home goods section. The employee moved the cart to the abandoned merchandise area, not knowing its significance. Orson's blue Chevrolet Silverado remained in the first row of the Bemidji Walmart parking lot, directly under the sodium vapor light pole, for 4 days. His daughter noticed that he had not answered his phone on Friday evening and called the Beltrami County Sheriff on Saturday morning. The sheriff located the Silverado. The keys were in Orson's front pocket, which was empty because Orson's body has not been recovered. The keys, along with his wallet, his phone, and a small pocket notebook he carried, were in the truck's center console, which was unlocked. I interviewed Orson McKellar's daughter, Colleen Avison, at her apartment in Minneapolis in the autumn of 2023. She's now 54 years old. She works as a paralegal at a law firm in downtown Minneapolis. She told me that she had not, in the 7 years since her father's disappearance, been able to sleep through a full night. She told me that she did not believe this was a biological matter, that she had been a normal sleeper before November of 2016. She told me that she wakes, most nights, at approximately 2:40 in the morning, which she has come to understand is approximately the time her father would have been at the Walmart, and that she lies awake until approximately 3:20, which is approximately the time his cart was found. She told me this pattern had been consistent for 7 years. She did not say she thought the pattern was connected to her father's disappearance in any mechanical way. She told me the pattern was simply the pattern her body had adopted. She told me she had obtained, through her firm's electronic discovery capabilities, a copy of the Walmart IT audit report. She told me she had read the audit report approximately 60 times. She told me the conclusion that the footage had been removed through an unknown mechanism by an unidentified actor was, to her, the worst sentence she had ever read. She told me she understood why the Walmart IT department had phrased the conclusion that way, because the IT department's job was to report what the evidence established, and nothing more. She told me the sentence was still the worst sentence. I asked her what she meant. She told me the sentence described a capability. She told me that a capability of removing footage from a corporate archive without leaving any log entry implied an actor. She told me she had, during her wakeful early morning hours, considered what actor would have the capability and the motive to remove 18 minutes and 41 seconds of footage of her father in a toy aisle. She told me she had not found an actor that satisfied both conditions. She told me she did not believe the actor was any human institution she had heard of. She told me she was not making a claim about what the actor was. She told me she was making a claim about what the actor was not. The 9th case has a witness, and the witness is a child. Deetra Hallstrom had just turned 39 in January when she disappeared in March of 2017. She was a commercial real estate appraiser at a mid-sized firm in suburban Boston, operating from the firm's Bemidji, Massachusetts office. She was married to a man named Curtis Hallstrom, who worked as a software engineer at a defense contractor in Waltham. They had one child, Emily, who was 6 years old and in first grade at the public elementary school in their Danvers neighborhood. The Hallstroms owned a 2-story colonial in a cul-de-sac, 3 blocks from the elementary school. They were, per every account I have been given, an ordinary middle-class family. On Sunday afternoon, March 12, 2017, Deetra took Emily to the Costco wholesale location on Endicott Street in Danvers. The visit was part of the family's standard Sunday routine. They went to Costco together. Curtis stayed home on Sunday afternoons to watch sports or to work on a small woodworking project in the basement. Deetra and Emily picked up the week's bulk groceries. The trips typically took approximately 90 minutes. Deetra and Emily arrived at the Endicott Street Costco at 12:30 in the afternoon. Deetra parked in the west section of the parking lot. She and Emily entered the warehouse at 12:34. Deetra's Costco membership 34. Deetra's Costco membership card swiped at the entrance turnstile. Emily was walking beside her, holding the edge of the shopping cart. For the next 11 minutes, Deetra and Emily are visible on the Costco interior cameras moving through the warehouse. They spend approximately 4 minutes in the produce section. Emily picks out a bag of mandarin oranges. Deetra selects a bag of organic spinach. They proceed to the bread section. Deetra selects a loaf of sourdough bread from the bakery display. They proceed toward the dairy coolers at the back of the warehouse. At 12:45 in the afternoon, per the Costco interior camera timestamp, Deetra and Emily are in aisle number 17, which is a dairy aisle carrying cheese products. Emily is standing directly beside the cart, approximately 18 inches from her mother. Emily's left shoe has come untied. Deetra bends down to one knee to tie Emily's shoe. The camera angle covering aisle 17 at that moment is from the south end of the aisle, looking north. The camera captures Deetra in a kneeling position, tying Emily's shoe. The camera captures Emily standing, her left hand resting on Deetra's shoulder for balance. The timestamp reads 12:45 and 11 seconds. The next frame from the same camera, approximately 1/30th of a second later at the camera's frame rate, shows Emily standing alone. Deetra is not in the frame. The shopping cart is where it was. Emily's left shoe is tied. Emily is looking down at her foot. Emily's mouth is beginning to open. The camera captures the subsequent 43 seconds. Emily stands alone in aisle 17. She looks down at her foot. She looks up. She turns her body to the left, then to the right. She says something, though the camera does not have audio. She takes 3 steps in one direction, then stops, then takes 3 steps back. She begins to cry. She stands in the aisle crying for an additional 17 seconds before another Costco member, a man in his 50s, approaches her and crouches beside her. That man alerts a Costco manager, who arrives in aisle 17 approximately 2 minutes later. The manager's staff locate Curtis Hallstrom's phone number in the Costco membership database and call him. Curtis Hallstrom arrived at the Endicott Street Costco at approximately 1:15. His daughter was in the Costco manager's office. She had been given a juice box and was sitting on a chair, not crying anymore but not speaking. Emily was 6 years old. She had been with her mother in aisle 17. Her mother had bent down to tie her shoe. Her mother had not stood back up. Emily, per the subsequent forensic child interview conducted by a licensed clinical psychologist from the Essex County District Attorney's Office, reported, in the simple declarative voice of a 6-year-old, that her mother had turned around and she had not been there. The clinical psychologist's report, which I have reviewed as part of Curtis's case file, notes that Emily's account was consistent across 3 separate interviews conducted over the following 2 weeks. Emily's account did not change in any material detail. Emily reported that she had felt her mother's hand on her shoulder, then not on her shoulder, then had looked down, and the hand was not there anymore. She reported that she had looked around, and her mother was not in the aisle. She reported that she had not seen her mother leave. She reported that she had not heard her mother say anything. She reported that her mother had been there, and then was not there. The clinical psychologist's report notes that 6-year-old children do not typically construct false memories at the level of detail Emily provided. The report notes that Emily's account is consistent with what the surveillance footage shows, which is Deetra moving from the frame in less than 1/30th of a second. The report notes that a 6-year-old asked to describe a sudden disappearance would be unlikely to use language that accurately captures the footage's evidence, unless she had in fact witnessed that event. Curtis Hallstrom's civil action against Costco was dismissed in 2019 on summary judgment. The court found that Costco had not breached any duty of care, that the surveillance footage was authentic per forensic analysis, and that the court had no mechanism to rule on the physical question of what had happened to Deetra Hallstrom in the span of less than 1/30th of a second in aisle 17. Emily Hallstrom is now 15 years old. She is a freshman at the Danvers Public High School. I did not interview Emily. Curtis, whom I interviewed at his house in 2023, declined to bring his daughter into the investigation. He told me Emily has, in the 8 years since her mother's disappearance, spoken about the incident on 3 separate occasions, each of them in therapy sessions with her long-term clinical psychologist. She has not spoken about the incident outside of therapy since approximately 2020. Curtis told me that Emily has, in her teenage years, developed a specific habit that he has not been able to break her of, and that her therapist has advised him not to attempt to break her of, because the habit appears to be Emily's own method of managing the memory. The habit is that Emily, when walking through any large retail environment, holds the hand or the edge of the clothing of whoever is with her continuously, even if she is moving between aisles or bending to look at merchandise. She does not release contact. Curtis told me that this habit applies to him, to her grandparents, to her school friends when she is shopping with them. Emily is now old enough that the habit is unusual for her age, but neither Curtis nor Emily's therapist has been willing to ask her to stop. Curtis told me he has not remarried. He told me he is not dating. He told me that his work is good, that Emily's grades are good, that the house is in good condition. He told me these are the 3 things he has made sure of for 8 years, and that he does not have the capacity to make sure of anything beyond these 3. He told me the camera footage is not the hardest thing he has ever had to think about. The hardest thing, he told me, is that Emily had felt her mother's hand on her shoulder, and then had not felt it, and had not understood what the change meant until she had looked up. The 10th case involves the only subject in this investigation who came back, and who did not know where he had been. Franklin Doyle was 47 years old in the summer of 2008. He was a commercial truck mechanic at a diesel repair shop in the city of Yuma, Arizona, on the California border in the southwestern corner of the state. He lived with his wife, Roselle Doyle, in a small house on the east side of Yuma. They had no children. Franklin had worked at the same diesel shop for 19 years. He was known to his co-workers as a reliable, methodical, hard-working man with a dry sense of humor. He was not a person prone to any form of unusual behavior. On the morning of Thursday, July 17, 2008, Franklin drove to the Walmart Supercenter on East 32nd Street in Yuma. The store was open 24 hours. Franklin had needed to pick up a few items on his way to work, which started at 7 that morning. He arrived at the Walmart at 6:15. He parked. He entered the store at 6:18. The interior camera footage captures him moving through the grocery section, selecting a gallon of milk, a carton of eggs, a package of bacon, a loaf of bread, and a jar. Captured Franklin walking for approximately 15 feet. At that point, he is behind a concrete planter that interrupts the camera's line of sight. The camera captures Franklin's left shoulder and the edge of his shopping cart disappearing behind the planter at 6:41 and 28 seconds. Franklin did not reappear on the far side of the planter. The camera that covers the garden center entrance, approximately 25 feet further along the sidewalk past the planter, did not capture him. The camera that covers the opposite side of the planter, which was installed approximately a year before the incident for loss prevention purposes to address shoplifters using the planter as a blind spot, did not capture him. The concrete planter at the south side of the Yuma Walmart Supercenter in the morning of July 17, 2008, is the last location at which Franklin Doyle was visible on any camera at the Yuma store. Franklin Doyle was next observed by human witnesses at 6:51 in the morning, approximately 10 minutes after his disappearance, behind the concrete planter in Yuma. The witnesses were 2 employees of the Walmart Supercenter on West Chandler Boulevard in Chandler, Arizona, a suburb in the metropolitan Phoenix area. The Chandler Walmart employees, a loss prevention officer named Bradley Shawn, and a shift supervisor named Priscilla Mason, were called to the parking lot at approximately 6:52 in the morning by a customer who reported that a middle-aged man was wandering in the lot in an apparent state of confusion. The customer, per the incident report, had approached the man to ask if he needed help. The man had not been able to answer any questions. He had not known where he was. He had not known what city he was in. He had not been able to provide any identifying information beyond his first name, which he had stated as Franklin. Bradley Shawn and Priscilla Mason approached Franklin Doyle in the parking lot of the Chandler Walmart at approximately 6:53. They asked him if he was lost. Franklin told them he was not sure. He told them he had been in Yuma. He told them he had been shopping. He told them he did not understand where he was or how he had come to be standing in the parking lot where he was standing. The Chandler Walmart is approximately 195 miles north of the Yuma Walmart by Interstate Highway. The drive between the two, via Interstate 8 eastbound and Interstate 10 northbound, takes approximately 3 hours. Franklin Doyle was in the parking lot of the Chandler Walmart at 6:53 in the morning on July 17, 2008, 10 minutes after his last camera appearance at the Yuma Walmart. Franklin had no vehicle. His truck, a 2001 Ford F-150, was in the Yuma Walmart parking lot. He had no luggage. He had the receipt from his purchase at the Yuma Walmart in his chest pocket, dated and time-stamped at 6:39 that morning. He did not have the groceries he had purchased. He had his wallet, his keys, and his cell phone. His cell phone was powered off. When Bradley Shawn later examined it at the request of the Chandler police, the phone showed it had powered off at 6:41 that morning, approximately the time Franklin had disappeared behind the concrete planter in Yuma. Franklin was taken to the Chandler Regional Medical Center for evaluation. The evaluation, conducted over the following 4 hours by the emergency department physician and consulting neurologist, produced no findings of any medical abnormality. Franklin had no injuries. He had no signs of head trauma. His vital signs were normal. His blood panel was normal. His drug screen, which was conducted with his consent, detected no alcohol, no illegal substances, and no unusual prescription medications. His neurological examination was normal. He was oriented to person. He was not oriented to place or time, but over the course of the 4-hour evaluation, his orientation returned to baseline. Franklin reported, per the emergency department note, that his last clear memory was of entering the Yuma Walmart at 6:18 that morning. He reported that he remembered selecting the groceries and checking out at self-checkout. He reported that he remembered pushing his cart toward the south entrance of the store. He reported that he did not remember stepping onto the sidewalk. He reported that his next memory was of standing in a parking lot in Chandler, which he had not initially recognized as Chandler, at the moment the Walmart employees approached him. He reported that the time between the two memories was, in his subjective experience, approximately 2 seconds. The attending physician's diagnosis, which I have reviewed, was transient global amnesia, a recognized medical category for sudden short-duration memory loss with subsequent full recovery, and no identifiable cause. Transient global amnesia is typically associated with specific neurological events, though the specific triggering event often cannot be identified. The physician noted in her chart that the case was consistent with transient global amnesia in every feature, except for the geographic displacement of 195 miles, which the physician acknowledged the diagnosis did not address. Franklin Doyle returned to Yuma by bus that afternoon. His truck was where he had left it in the Walmart parking lot. The receipt, the missing groceries, and the 10-minute gap between his disappearance and his reappearance were, per his statement to the Yuma police, who took his report the following day. Facts he could not explain. He told the Yuma officers that he had, in his life, been to Chandler approximately 4 times, most recently in 2005, and that he had no family or friends in the city. He told the officers he did not know how he had come to be in Chandler on the morning of July 17th. Franklin Doyle returned to his job at the diesel repair shop the following Monday. He worked at the shop for 9 more years, retiring in 2017. He did not experience any recurrence of the episode. He and Roselle continued to live in the same house in Yuma. Roselle told me, when I reached her by phone in the autumn of 2023, that Franklin had declined to speak about the incident after approximately the first month following his return. She told me that he had not been fundamentally changed by the experience in any way she could identify. She told me that he did, for the remaining years of his life, avoid shopping at the Yuma Walmart. She told me Franklin had died of natural causes in 2021 at the age of 60. He had never reported another memory gap. He had never reported any clarity on what had happened between his last memory in Yuma and his first memory in Chandler. Roselle told me she had asked him, during the years after the incident, whether he had any theories. She told me Franklin had said, each time she had asked, that he did not have a theory. She told me she believed him. Roselle told me the most difficult part of the incident, for her, was the receipt. She told me the groceries Franklin had purchased at 6:39 that morning, on the receipt dated and time stamped, had never been recovered. She told me she had, in the days following Franklin's return, called the Yuma Walmart and asked whether the groceries had been located, on the theory that perhaps Franklin had left them at the store and someone had turned them in. She told me the Walmart had no record of any groceries having been turned in that day. She told me the groceries were not in Franklin's truck. They were not at the Chandler Walmart. They were not on his person when he was approached in the Chandler parking lot. The gallon of milk, the carton of eggs, the package of bacon, the loaf of bread, and the jar of peanut butter that Franklin had paid for in Yuma at 6:39 on July 17th, 2008, have never been accounted for. Roselle told me that she had, for 13 years, been unable to stop thinking about the groceries. She told me the receipt was on her kitchen counter, in a small glass dish, on the morning I called her. She told me the receipt had been on the counter for 13 years. The 11th and final case is currently the subject of federal litigation, and I cannot describe it in the detail I have described the preceding 10, because the family has asked me not to. What I can tell you is that the subject is a 40-year-old woman who vanished from a Home Depot in the Charlotte, North Carolina metropolitan area in the spring of 2024. Her entry into the store is recorded. Her presence in the store over the following 51 minutes is recorded across multiple camera angles. Her exit from the store is not recorded on any of the Home Depot's monitored exits. Her vehicle remained in the lot for 6 days before the family authorized towing. Her purse, phone, and keys were in the vehicle. The family retained legal counsel. In April of 2025, the family's attorney filed a federal civil action in the United States District Court for the Western District of North Carolina, seeking a declaratory judgment that Home Depot Corporation must preserve and produce the full surveillance archive of every Home Depot store within a 200-mile radius of the Charlotte store on the date of the disappearance and for the 72 hours following. The action is the first of its kind in the retail context. It rests on the argument, presented in the family's opening brief, that the geographic displacement observed in the Franklin Doyle case in 2008, which I have just described, constitutes a pattern that law enforcement has not examined, and that only a preservation order covering multiple adjacent retail locations can adequately address. The Home Depot Corporation has moved to dismiss the action, arguing that the relief requested is overbroad, that the family has not established a factual basis for the pattern theory, and that preservation of surveillance footage beyond the statutorily required 90-day retention period imposes an unreasonable burden on the corporation. The motion to dismiss is pending. A ruling is expected from the federal court during the first half of the current year. If the court grants the preservation order, the Home Depot Corporation will be required to produce for the first time in the history of American retail litigation, coordinated multi-location surveillance archives that would permit a pattern analysis across adjacent retail sites of the type that law enforcement has never been in a position to conduct. If the court denies the order, the family has indicated that the civil action will continue on its narrower original grounds, which seek only the preservation of the Charlotte store's own archive, plus adjacent parking lot footage. The case is the reason this investigation is being released at this time. The pattern I have described in the preceding 10 cases is, as of the filing of the Charlotte federal action, becoming a pattern that the American civil court system is being asked to examine. Whether the court will in fact examine it is pending. 11 cases, 11 American adults, 11 large retail stores, 11 sets of surveillance footage that does not contain the exit of the subject, 11 vehicles remaining in parking lots, 11 sets of personal effects remaining in the vehicles or in the stores. 10 out of the 11 have not been recovered in any form. The 11th, the only one who returned, was observed 195 miles from his point of disappearance, 10 minutes after his last camera appearance, with no memory of the interval. One of the 10 who have not been recovered was observed as absent by her 6-year-old daughter in a time span of less than 1/30th of a second. Another left behind surveillance footage that had been selectively removed from the corporate archive by an unknown mechanism. Another left behind a phone whose Wi-Fi connection continued to generate signal strength readings for 4 hours and 13 minutes after the camera had lost her. The hypothesis that the 11 subjects exited the stores through unmonitored passages fails because every store had no unmonitored passages, per the corporate loss prevention protocols documented in each case. The hypothesis that the 11 subjects remained inside the stores and were eventually removed during closing operations fails because 10 of the 11 stores operated 24 hours and had no closing operation, and the one store that did close conducted a full closing sweep that located no subject. The hypothesis that the surveillance systems were tampered with fails because independent forensic analysis of the archives in 10 of the 11 cases found no evidence of tampering. The remaining case, the Bemidji Walmart, involved confirmed removal of footage per the corporate IT audit, but the audit was unable to identify the mechanism or the actor responsible for the removal. The hypothesis that the 11 subjects departed voluntarily through exits that were simply missed by investigators fails because the exterior cameras covered the exits continuously, and the review of the exterior footage has, in every case, been conducted with sufficient rigor to identify any human figure exiting the building. The hypothesis that the 11 subjects were removed by other human actors through criminal abduction fails because the parking lot cameras covering the areas around the vehicles showed no unusual activity consistent with abduction, because the abductors would themselves have needed to exit the stores on camera, and because the 10 subjects whose bodies have not been recovered have not surfaced through any of the mechanisms by which abduction victims typically become known to investigators. The hypothesis that I have not yet considered is the hypothesis this investigation leaves open. If you are a family member of a person who walked into a large retail store in the United States and did not walk out, I want you to know that you are not the first family this has happened to. The Charlotte federal action is the first legal proceeding that treats the pattern as a pattern. The Charlotte family has indicated, through their attorney, that they would welcome amicus briefs from other families in similar circumstances as the action proceeds. Contact this channel through the email address in the description if you believe your family may be in that category. I will relay your contact information to the Charlotte family's attorney with your permission. If you work in retail loss prevention at any level of the corporate hierarchy of Walmart, Costco, Target, Home Depot, Kroger, Sam's Club, or any of the other large American retail chains, and you have personally encountered a case that matches the pattern described in this video, I will protect your identity. The Retail Loss Prevention District Manager who spoke with me for this investigation did so under terms that I have honored without exception and will continue to to honor. If you are a customer who shops at any of these stores regularly, which is approximately every adult in the United States, I am not suggesting that you stop shopping at them. I am not suggesting that you avoid these stores. The 11 cases I have described occurred over 18 years across thousands of retail locations and billions of customer visits. Your personal likelihood of being affected by the pattern is statistically negligible. I am reporting the pattern because the pattern exists, not because the pattern represents a probabilistic threat to any individual shopper. What I am suggesting is that the next time you walk into a Walmart or a Costco or a Target or a Home Depot, you take a moment to look up at the cameras. There are many more of them than you probably realize. They cover every aisle, every checkout, every exit, every corner of the lot. They record continuously. They archive for 60 or 90 days. The footage is owned by the corporations. The corporations will release it only under subpoena, and only the footage covering the specific time and location the subpoena requests. Everything else, every frame the cameras have captured of every customer who has shopped at every store, sits in corporate archives that no member of the public will ever see. The cameras covered every exit of every store the 11 subjects walked into. The cameras did not capture the exits. The archives have been reviewed. The archives are silent on the question of what happened. This has been a Case 0 investigation. Case closed for now. The file stays open.